Welcome to Under the Rug at Work, where we shine light on things that are normally swept under the rug. Today, I'm chatting with Devika Dey about co-founder conflict. Devika is a psychotherapist and couples counsellor and provides mental health support for small businesses. Devika, thank you so much for joining me. This is a really interesting topic.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful. I'm really looking forward to diving in and yeah, just talking all things couples, really.
Awesome. Now, for people who might not have met you before, can you tell us just a bit about your background and also how you came to specialize in supporting co-founders?
Yes. So how did I come about supporting co-founders? It was by pure accident. I'll go
Always.
into that in a moment. But my background, again, how I became a couples therapist is again an accident. But anyway, let's get let's get there into the history. I started off 20 years ago in the wealth management, business banking, kind of financial strategist space. I predominantly worked, in the consulting advising realms for mum and dad clients in financial planning or small businesses. So this is kind of where I sat.
Yes.
And then, like all things, life happens. And sometimes life happens in a way that we don't anticipate. For example, myself, marriage breakup.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I, to be fair, I really struggled with conflict. Isn't that ironic? And what my relationship told me was how much I struggled with conflict in relationships.
Mm.
So I decided to just kind of train and study and do a degree in psychotherapy, as you do,
Yeah.
you don't you? Yes. And I never had the intention of becoming a couples therapist or even becoming a psychotherapist. But as I continued my training, I then went into the realms of relationship coaching first
Mhm.
and really started up a well-being business that was focusing on relationships and relationship well-being, more in the coaching space, not in the therapy space. And then once I completed, I'm like, yeah, hell, I'm going to do this. And
Yeah.
I then did further training in couples therapy. And by pure accident, literally by pure accident, I had a couple come into my therapy practice who were also um, business partners.
Hmm.
And that's when I found my previous life marrying with my present life.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like this supercharged moment of, oh, ho, I don't think there are many couples therapists who have actually my history or my professional background. Um,
Mm.
yeah, so that's when I sort of saw a really interesting merging happening in my
Yeah.
therapy practice. And that's when I just went all in for small business and more to the point, co-founders and business partners yeah, in relationship. Yeah, the professional relationship, really. Yeah.
And it's so great when something like that happens because, yeah, you look up and go, oh gosh, I've been training for this almost my whole life, and I didn't realize it. And now I found my sweet spot, my spot where I can make the most impact, the most difference, and that's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so incredible, not only for you, but for the clients that you're supporting to be able to say, I do have this extensive background, and hey, the lived experience part as well also makes a big difference because sometimes when that's missing, other things go missing as well. But from your perspective and perhaps lived experience, what's the main reasons that co-founders often end up in conflict? Are there any common patterns or triggers that you see in your work?
Yes,
Yeah.
and yes. So let's start with the first reason. That reason is very simple. So I think the Dr. John and Julie Gottman, they've actually articulated it the best. It's
Yeah.
just quick, simple, easy one-liner, which is we're human and we're in relationship. The moment any human being enters a relationship, they're now entering into conflict straight away. It is a prerequisite. It's almost like a foundational basis to be in relationship. And that can even be, look, human beings in relationship with themselves and conflicted. Human
Mm.
beings in relationship with their partners are going to face conflict with their kids, with their parents, even with their pets. So you know what I mean? Like it's there. We can't
Yeah.
get away from it. It's almost like a core ingredient of what it is to be human. It's a part of
Mhm.
the meaning making process for us as well. So that's the first aspect. The triggers. when you say trigger, can I just ask here, are you talking about when conflict feels like it's getting too much?
It's kind of what triggers the start of it. Well, yeah, what's kind of
Yeah.
that, yeah, trigger point. Yeah.
Okay, so the real start, I would say, always distills down to this one thing, which is
Mm.
underlying every narrative. And that is usually right now in this relationship, I have lost myself. And because I have lost myself, I have lost the other person I am now with. And
Mm.
because of that, there's this feeling that comes in that is a bit like it's almost this narrative of blindness. I'm feeling blind right now. Everything is feeling scary. I'm
Mhm.
feeling alone. I'm feeling isolated. And right now, I don't know what to do. And from this place, that is where conflict emerges.
That is powerful. And this is such a unique episode because we haven't delved into this sort of thing. And I'm loving it already. People listening are probably going, yeah, that makes sense. What can we do about it though? What are some of those early warning signs or that the red flags that co-founders should look out for before it escalates? So how do they know that they're feeling that? What should they do?
Yeah, so the key one here is to really know A, what's on your plate and what's stressing you out. I tend to find this is something that co-founders tend to get into the task of things very quickly. And actually, I haven't come across any co-founder or any person who's in business that doesn't have this very activated and almost all-encompassing narrative with responsibility. And when responsibility enters the frame, don't get me wrong, responsibility is a very good thing. We all need it. We do want accountable leaders,
Mhm.
but sometimes it comes into the frame so hard and fast that it actually has the power to block the relationship entirely. And
Mm.
when that happens, um, that's kind of like what cuts people off at the knees. So
Mhm.
if we're looking at some things that we could do, just sort of practices we could do even, uh, Esther Perel, she's got some fantastic stuff around this. And frankly, I'm going to borrow it right now for this podcast. So the
Mhm.
first thing she says, right, you've got a gratitude practice for yourself, daily practice or even weekly practice. Have one for your co-founder. Start
Mm.
putting down what are the things that they're really bringing to the table and not just their professional skills. And this is the biggest one I see where co-founders get lost is it is so easy to see your CV and it
Mm.
is so easy to see skills,
Yeah.
task orientated things someone can bring into a relationship. What's not so easy to clock is the implicit stuff, the relational stuff.
Mm.
Um, so things like attributes, humor, they're curious, they're
Mhm.
fun, you know, um, oh, look, they love nature. And I love that about them because we can also go out for walks. These little sort of character building things,
Mm.
very important with helping stabilizing that
Mhm.
co-founder relationship, especially in the early days when things feel a lot.
Yes. I love that. That's so practical. And I was actually thinking of that with a partnership that I'm doing with another incredible human. Um, and so that you can refer back to it on the days where maybe there is some conflict or maybe there is a misunderstanding, because often that's, when conflict occurs as well, right? So I love that you said that, and I'm definitely going to do it now. And Blady and Caroline, I'm looking at you. Because it's really nice to have as well. Like you partner with people, you want to start a business with people, because you see the different skill sets, but it's the other things that help bring that relationship to life and the reason why you want to work with them as well, right? So,
Absolutely. And it's a very good place to start a conversation that feels difficult because
mm,
what it does is it's what the Gottmans call is like the soft startup. So
mhm,
practicing a soft startup for a challenging conversation where
yeah,
it feels like you're not going to crash and overwhelm the other person in the room.
yes. because it is overwhelming. And I also share with people, which I think you have too, you know, what's the outcome you want? Bring in with the end in mind. And the end in mind is always something positive, right? You want to get back on track. You want to have a productive business. You want to, you know, make money together. You want to do good things. So focusing on that rather than trying to focus on the problem or the person is often a really good way to do that too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, oh gosh, it came to me and then it's now gone, but it's probably going to come to me again. It also has the power to, oh, this is the thing that conflict actually is an opportunity for.
Mm.
All conflict does this. So
Mm.
all conflict is designed, if it's good conflict, if it's healthy conflict, is designed to actually cohese, connect, and create more experiences of belonging and
Mm.
togetherness, or conflict. And that is not the view the world actually has, the more popular view the world has of conflict. The more
Yes.
popular view of conflict is disconnection, rupture, fragmentation, and isolation, and also
Mm.
stagnation, right?
Mm.
People kind of stay stuck
Mm-hmm.
through conflict. So I think having a practice like that is going to really help someone just practically in a very small way
Mm.
wire you up for the good stuff for conflict,
Yes.
which is that bonding experience.
Yeah. Because the conflict is, I have an unmet need. You
Mhm.
haven't met my needs, whether it's been verbalized or not. So, and then, you know, how that's received or how that's provided to the
Yeah.
other person can sometimes be done well and sometimes not done well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's a skill, and it's a skill that we all can learn. Um,
Hmm.
and essentially that's what I do, I suppose, in my day to day.
Yeah.
People these skills. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I think it's also important to know and look at the impacts, because it can cause a lot of damage. So can you share some of those, the unresolved conflict of co-founders? What impact can that have on the business and the relationship?
Yeah, so there's some great research from a guy, an individual called Noam Wasserman, and he's a Harvard Business School professor who really studied like kind of this leadership challenge or the leadership relationship. And the one thing he identified is 60% of startups will all fail because of unresolved co-founder conflict. It's so essentially, unfortunately, it's not even stacking the odds in a good way. It's stacking the odds very much in a place where your business is not going to be there. The one thing that's, you know, you're driven together about, you're passionate about, potentially that's the sacrificial lamb here for not resolving this conflict.
Mm. And that's not why we get started, right?
No, absolutely not. I cannot think of one individual that I've sat across in a clinical space with who said, absolutely, I
Mm.
want to, you know, put a hand grenade to this thing. Like, you know, I've never heard that at all.
Yeah. But that's what happens, right? Like it just becomes so awkward, uncomfortable, aggressive, defensive, and it just spirals. And I've seen it in my work, you've seen it in your work. Sometimes you can bring it back, sometimes it's gone too far.
Yeah.
But it's good to be able to see those early warning signs and pick those up to be able to say, right, how can we look at this positively? I've got an unmet need. How can I communicate that unmet need with you in a way that we can be on the same page, make sure there's no miscommunication, and focus on the outcome and the result we want to work together to get there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's probably one of the most rewarding thing to also experience when you've
Mm.
had something that's quite challenging that's come your way. I mean, like think about it. If you know, if someone has a challenging task, say for example, uh running a race or whatever, the amount of dopamine that hits their system when they know that they've won or they've even finished that race is phenomenal. So
Mm.
if you'd like a little bit of a dopamine hit, then yeah, go for a challenging conversation for sure. See how you go through it.
Coming out the other side, and it always feels scary when you start, but coming out the other side, you feel so much relief. And when you're on the same page and that you know the heart of the other person and they want to get to that positive outcome as well, you can begin to work together. And it is really a great feeling to be able to move past that and then get to know each other. As you said, you know, having that belonging, having that better connection. I know you better now. Like, we've been able to resolve this challenge and support each other through it to get to a better outcome. Like, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the certainly from my experience, I can just say when those moments happen, the endorphins in the room is just not for the two people that it's that moment of recognition, the moment of bonding happens for. They actually then have the power and the capability to transmit that
Mm,
to the room itself. So if they can do that in a clinical space with just me,
yeah.
they could probably do it right in front of their team.
Yes.
And what a great team to work in when both your co-founders have the ability to then transmit something that powerful. You know,
Mm,
it's
yeah,
I think that would be great. Yeah.
definitely. I never heard that before. I love that. Thank you. So, when conflict does arrive, we have had a bit of a chat about this. It can feel overwhelming and often personal. We get defensive and feel attacked or start attacking. What strategies or advice do you recommend for co-founders who are looking to improve that relationship and make conflict more productive?
Yeah. Okay. So that first tip that I gave, Esther Perel's,
Yes.
around basically looking at the relational soft skills that the co-founders bringing to the business. Very
Yep.
important. Great place to start. A couple of other Perel's nuggets, the following. So she talks about character assassination. Um,
Mm,
who are you talking to when things go wrong and you're feeling you want to have a vent? They haven't met me. You know, those moments. And look, this is normal.
mm,
Everyone does it.
yes.
Everyone wants to have a bitch fest, mate. Like, yeah, okay, we get it. That's fine. But it is at the expense of your relationship. And it can feel very cathartic to vent to someone else, to an outsider. Usually, if it's a business partner or a co-founder, they're usually venting to their life partner or romantic partner
Hmm. Yep.
about the situation. The problem with that is venting and that kind of catharsis doesn't necessarily help something to really process out the system. In fact, it can also charge it back up again because
Hmm.
now you've got someone else validating your worldview, and that's understandably so because they love you and they don't want to see you hurt and frustrated and not being met, which means that they're a phenomenal partner.
Yeah.
Like, they're out there, they're watching your back, which is great. I'm really happy for you. But here's the thing, it's putting the business partnership at risk.
Mm,
Um, so it's kind of the way it's sort of been described is imagine this. You know, someone runs late for a meeting, you run late for a meeting, for example, or I run late for a meeting. And when I run late for a meeting, it's not about me. It is about the fact that of a circumstance, you know, the Uber didn't come on time. I didn't get the directions were all haywire. I didn't get the correct, you know, the guy couldn't find a spot to park in, whatever. You know, all these circumstantial stuff means that I am now late, and it's got nothing to do with me. It's, you
mm,
know, it is what it is, circumstantial. However, if my business partner runs late, you are always like dropping the ball. You're never here. You're constantly not meeting me. What is going on? Like, okay, there we go. Character assassination. One
yeah.
rule for me, another one for them. So
Hmm.
in that situation, I go to what you know about the
Hmm.
character themselves,
Yes.
which is that first practice of actually seeing their attributes.
Mm,
And
yeah.
then always say, it's not them, it's just the situation. They're
Yeah.
not doing this
Yeah.
to hijack this. So
Mm,
it's kind of almost, it's a great way to talk ourselves off a ledge
yes.
in the relationship. So that's the second thing. The third thing would be to really get a nice, concrete idea of how we respond to stress. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're now talking fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Right. What's our strategies, our internal, primal, built-in strategies that are hardwired into us from birth to deal with stress?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a practice that Deb Dana uses. I think it's fantastic. It's called the traffic light practice. And the
Mm-hmm.
traffic light is this: when I'm green, so the green light is I'm feeling social, I'm feeling connected, I'm feeling curious, I'm feeling like I want to lean in and learn and engage and just soak all the goodness out of life. That's the green state. It's the best state to be in. This is really the effective problem-solving state as well. We're looking for things that can help us stay green. So usually when I'm talking to couples and saying, right, what's your green states? I'm hearing things like smiles. I smile.
Mm.
I'm listening to music.
Mm-hmm.
I look out the window and stare at a tree, and that just helps me stay
Mm.
green. Things like this. So learn what it is that gets you out of your amber state, which is more your fight flight state,
Mm-hmm.
and into your green state. The
Mm-hmm.
one thing we never want to go is into the red traffic light, which is the shutdown and freeze.
Yes.
So we want to stay out of that one. We don't want to go there. We want to
Yeah.
go amber. From amber, it's easy to go back up to green.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's so interesting because I use that exact fight, flight, freeze model and getting into the green in my minimizing harmful behaviors training as well. Because when we're in that state, our brain and our logic shuts down. So to have a conversation well, it's not going to be a conversation, it's a reaction, right? We want to get into responding rather than reacting. So I love that analogy. Thank you for sharing. And it's something that we really don't think about until someone says something like this to go, oh, yeah, actually, that does make sense. I am fighting or I'm running away or what's my habit? What's my go-to? How can I shift that? And how can I get back into the green? Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. In the green state, all conflict is going to be productive
Yes.
for the partnership and the business. All
Mm.
conflict is going to be productive.
Yes, nailed it. Definitely. So, at what point do you actually recommend that co-founders seek external support like therapy or mediation rather than trying to resolve it on their own?
Okay, so mediation is really when someone needs practical, strategical, tactical solutions that
Mhm.
they can execute and both get on board with, which might take into account the emotions, but sometimes it's not really there. So I've seen effective mediation when someone's really kind of at a point where they're either at crisis to the point where they cannot see the strategies at
Mhm.
all.
Yeah.
This is when mediation becomes very effective, especially for the business. Um, and when it comes to therapy, okay, there's two places where therapy is really great. The first place is in the honeymoon phase. This is where you're learning, you're already green, you're loving the hell out of your partner. It's fantastic, but it's also the best space to learn about conflict and conflict before it becomes escalated. The
Hmm.
other spot is obviously when the conflict is wreaking havoc on the emotional world.
Hmm.
Absolutely come into therapy. At this point, it's possibly seen as crisis,
Hmm.
but and therapy can be effective, but it really does depend on how where the spectrum of the rupture is now in this
Yeah.
relationship. If the rupture is at a point where it's now feeling more like we need to amputate,
Hmm.
gangrene's in, it's too far gone, we need to amputate.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, therapy may not be all that effective, but we can get some skills to help us in our next ventures.
Yes.
Learn how not to get to that state.
Great point. And
Yeah,
every opportunity is a learning opportunity, right? Like even if it's bad,
absolutely.
even if the end result and the outcome is not what it was first expected or a good outcome, learning from that to be able to take away and improve in the future is, yeah, a really great point. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I have found more progress really when they come in early and quick. And they're coming in early and quick, not because it's because the business, this side of the business is something that they have identified as being a growth space for them. And the one thing, and this is again, Esther Perel says, when it comes to, just looking at how the business has progressed, the KPIs of, how have we actually hit our targets? Everyone's got a KPI for marketing. Everyone's got a KPI for finance. Everyone's got a KPI for projects and strategy. They do not have a KPI for relationships. This is the one KPI that is letting us down. They've got a KPI for customer relationships, but no co-founder relationship KPI. Okay, maybe we need to change this. We need to address this now.
Oh, good idea. Great. And as you know, running a business isn't a short-term project. What are some of the ways that co-founders can maintain a healthy dynamic in the long haul? You kind of have shared a few tips. Is there anything else you want to leave us with?
Yes, this is something that I don't think co-founders do. And if I'm honest, this is something romantic partners and spouse partners don't do. And that is they actively try and navigate what their house of relationship is and what it's going to look like. So this is something from the Gottman's style of relationship therapy, which is, at the bottom end, you've got your love map. Now, this is where you're starting to get to know each other, each other's quirks and stuff. This is probably a terrible example for co-founders because no one really cares about, for example, one of the questions could be, what was the thing that you noticed about me on our first date? No one cares about that in a co-founder relationship. So let's put that aside. What we can rephrase it with is a purpose map. What is the purpose of this? What is the purpose of us coming together? What is the purpose of this business? I was listening to this podcast and this fantastic, and I can't remember his name. He's a great speaker and he's like this, expert on like businesses. And he says, when I go wrong in business is when I focus more on the pleasure and less on the purpose. Less on like that kind of like the endorphins for the business hits of what it's going to generate for me, like the self-validation, whatever, etc. And more about how I want to be in this business. So getting together and actually articulating your values on who do I want to be in this co-founding relationship is going to be very helpful. And you can do that in two parts. So quarter one, absolutely. That's when we're starting to map out our relationship KPI. A part of that process is having this idea of who do I want to be in relationship with you? What attributes do I want to bring to the table? Same thing for your co-founder. They need to do the exact same thing. And then you have a discussion about it and talk about how is this going to help us out in this business and how is it going to elevate our teams and elevate this business together. That would be the best way to stay on track.
Yes. I love it. There has been so many golden nuggets in this podcast. I really appreciate you coming on, Devika, and talking about a topic that hasn't been talked about that I have seen and looking at it from a different angle on, that therapy, that support, that conflict. So I really appreciate it. This has been such a fun conversation.
It has. Thank you so much for having me. I've really loved it and I've loved your energy. It's been fantastic.
Great. If people want to learn more about you or get in touch, what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so I've got, LinkedIn really is like the best place to find me. Just look me up, Devika Dey on LinkedIn. That is actually the best place to connect, follow, and just reach out. Pretty much it.
Fantastic. And I'll share that in the show notes, the link in the show notes as well. But again, thank you so much for joining me on Under the Rug at Work. And for the listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend. I'll catch you next time where we'll continue to shine light on issues that are too often swept under the rug.